Sentences make or break clauses. This is lesson 5 in the architecture of grammar. My name is Léandre Larouche. I'm the author of the architecture of grammar and the founder of Trivium Writing. My goal is to make you the best writer possible so that you can be successful at the things you do. Now, this video is going to be a little shorter than the other ones, and it's going to repeat things that we've already seen in the last video. But the reason I'm repeating these things is that they are extremely important. Repetition is good for retention. And so I want to make sure that you actually retain this information because it will go a long way in your writing journey. So as we've mentioned in the last video, we have clauses and we have two types of clauses. We have dependent clauses and we have independent clauses. How do we know that we have a dependent or an independent? Well, the dependent clause cannot stand on its own. We have conjunctions, and the conjunctions can indicate us either the when or the how, or there are other things that it could indicate, but it essentially sets a condition. And that's why I've put this sign, so the who and the what is greater than the when or the how. And it actually makes sense because, as we've been saying in the last videos, the who and the what is the basic grammatical requirement. That's what we critically need in order to have a good sentence that people can understand. So the who and the what is greater than the when or the how. The when or the how, if a conjunction, and this is important, if it's not a conjunction, it's not going to be setting a condition, it's not going to make it a dependent clause. So this is important to understand. That's what makes it dependent. You can't really see it, it's written in depth. So we have the conjunctions, and so the who and the what are greater than the when and the how. When we add this, we've made the clause dependent. However, if we remove these things, if we remove the when and the how, it becomes an independent clause. And an independent clause is what every type of sentence needs. So we're going to see that in another video, but there are 4 types of sentences. I'll give you a quick overview right now so that you're prepared. A simple sentence only has an independent clause. A complex sentence has a dependent and an independent clause. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses, so 2 times. And a compound complex has at least 1 dependent and at least 1 independent. So these are the 4 types of sentences, and they're all predicated on the fact that we have dependent and independent clauses. But in every sentence, whether simple, complex, compound, or compound complex, we always have an independent clause because the independent clause has the basic grammatical requirement, which is the who and the what. This is critically important. I cannot overemphasize this. You've heard me repeat this over and over again. There's a reason I'm repeating this. This is so important. I see so many people forgetting this or that, and it messes up their sentences and they're impossible to understand. And the reason this is kind of hard and the reason writing can be difficult is that we need a lot of order to make our thoughts make sense, and our brains are not necessarily wired for order. And it's a lot of thought we have to put into to create a structure, whether at the level of sentences or anything like that. So you may have made these mistakes in the past, you may be doing these mistakes right now, and it may still happen in the future, but don't blame yourself, don't beat yourself. Just always remember who and what, someone does something in the sentence. That's the most important thing. And in addition to that, always remember that if you have a conjunction that sets a condition, it makes it a dependent clause, so that's not the end of the story. We've said that in the last video. A dependent clause is not the end of the story. An independent clause is the end of the story. So now go in lesson 5 of the architecture of grammar and look at the more in-depth explanations. I believe there is no exercise in that specific section. It is more an introduction to clauses, because then it leads into part 2, I believe, of the book, which is all about clauses and what goes inside clauses, which is what we're going to cover in the next videos.